Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm David Baddiel. I'm not going to do any jokes because you've just watched probably the funniest film of all time, and I think me doing 10 minutes now would be shit. Let's be honest. I'm not going to top Life of Brian. But welcome to this. Hello, anyone watching on Facebook Live. Hello, Mark Zuckerberg. We are here because Life of Brian is going to open again after 40 years in cinemas. I think on the 18th. You get a free pack, which I think, do you get the pack? Yeah, you'll get the pack. Anyone apparently going to the cinema on the 18th gets the pack. So if you want two of them, you can sell on eBay, then go again on the 18th. But meanwhile, please welcome two comedy legends and two of the main people behind this incredible film, Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam, ladies and gentlemen. Hello there. That's all right. Hello, Terry.
We really wanted to be in Game of Thrones, but we're both too small.
How are you doing?
Game of Drones.
It's rather odd to see, and nice to see a film on this bigger screen. It's lovely.
Yeah, yeah. So, look, it's 40 years since Life of Brian. Is that right? 40 years since it came out.
Man and boy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's working.
It is working.
Oh.
I know they weren't laughing, but it is working. Right. And let's begin. Let's begin with where you were when you started working on this movie. At what point? What was happening with Python at the point at which you decided to do this film?
Well, I mean, we'd done The Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And we were
Yeah.
in Amsterdam.
Oh, really? You've put it down to
Next to
Amsterdam.
you.
Yeah.
Finish the sentence.
In Holland.
In Holland with
The
Eric,
Netherlands, to be
with
more
Eric,
Because Holland
Eric,
part of
Terry,
Netherlands
John,
actually has
Mike as
Brabant.
well was there. We were all there together, and I remember Eric saying,
that he had an idea, a good idea for a title for a movie called
"What?
Jesus. You're supposed to be doing this.
No, I'm just listening to you.
No.
Yeah.
His title was Jesus Christ Lusts for Glory.
Jesus Christ, Lust
And
for
we all
Glory.
thought, oh, that's very good, yeah. But
Yeah.
we can't ever really do a film about the Bible story. Let's have another drink. And then it kind of stuck around, and it seemed a challenge to try and write something about religion and about the Bible story, because he needed, like Holy Grail had a very vague story, the quest for the Grail. The Bible story is, everyone knows it, but it can go in all sorts of directions. But how do we do it?
But by that time the TV show was over. Is that right?
Oh yeah, that was well over.
But you were doing, what were you doing at the time? You would have been doing
ripping yarns.
yeah, ripping yarns.
Yeah.
Were you starting to direct?
No, I
He was
done
unemployed, so-
Jabberwocky.
You were unemployed. Oh yeah, no, you were doing
Jabberwocky.
Yeah.
I had escaped the clutches of Terry Jones and was working
Yeah.
on my own.
Right, yeah. Because you co-directed Holy Grail,
Yes.
but he wouldn't let you near this. Is that right?
No, I wasn't Terry. It was the other Pythons who were unbearable.
All right.
So I said, never again will I work with that crowd as a director.
Okay.
I will play the grotesques and let them feel superior to me. But other than that, it was over.
Well, no, it wasn't. When I appeared in your Jabberwocky, I was beaten.
Yes, I know. But
and smacked
that's why we're
down.
here
Yeah,
together
yeah.
tonight, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
So
That moment.
So how are you? So because my interest is how you all brought back together at this point. If you're all doing different things.
Because, I mean, it really was the fact that Holy Grail had more success than we expected, but we needed to support it. So we were talking. I mean, just the actual fact of going around doing publicity meant that we were talking about the benefits of working together as Python. I mean, John was doing Faulty Towers and all that. There was no reason why.
It was the remain period of Python.
Right.
The benefits of staying together.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a split between you, but basically
Yeah,
it wasn't as damaging.
I hope that wouldn't come up. But anyway, we are where we are, as
Yeah,
people keep
well,
saying.
we are
which is so
where we are.
ridiculous, because no one knows where we are.
No one knows
We are where we
where
don't
the
fucking
fuck
know
we
where
are.
we are.
No. No idea. But we're supposed to be talking about Life of Brian rather than Life of Brexit.
Yeah, well, he started it.
Yeah. So basically, Eric had this idea, Jesus Christ, Lust for Glory. At what point does that become like not just a stupid thing to say and like a real idea for a movie?
When we realised that Holy Grail had made enough money to make it worthwhile writing another movie together.
Right.
So what did we write? Oh, Eric had that great idea. How about that? So that was the
But the famous story, of course, is that no one would finance it until George Harrison turned up.
No,
isn't that
we
right?
were heavily financed until the moment we were about to get on the plane to go to Tunisia to shoot it. And then Lord Delfont, Bernie to his friends like Mike, who AMI had said yes to the whole process. And we're literally 3 days,
Money had been spent on
money had
building
been
the
spent.
set.
We had been down there, and everybody was about to go. And little Bernie finally read the script and found it blasphemous.
Really?
Yeah, and he pulled.
Didn't he have any sense what it might have been like at all? He had no idea what this film, Monty Python doing the Jesus story to some extent, was going to be like.
Until that moment, I don't believe he did.
Okay.
There were two people lower down the EMI organisation, Barry Spikings and I can't remember the other guy, who they really thought this was great. This
Okay.
is something they should be investing in.
Yeah.
He said, no, we shouldn't. It's
Literally
blasphemous.
just before you were going to start filming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how did George Harrison get involved?
I think
Well-
Eric, who's always the contact man, Eric.
Can I tell?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Can I tell how Eric met George or how I?
You can. You don't have to ask
George
Mike.
with
You
Eric.
can. The audience want to know.
Oh.
How did Eric meet George?
No, but Mike might not want to know.
Oh, okay.
No, we were again. It all comes down to promoting Holy Grail because
Yeah.
that's why we were together in
I said
Amsterdam.
that. I just said that. Can you just? That's said. They
I just
know
want to
that.
make it clear.
Move on from that. Okay.
Because the way he said it, I wasn't certain. But
gonna
did you
get stuck
mention
in
West?
Amsterdam,
Did you
you know.
mention Westwood in Los Angeles?
No, I didn't.
There you go. The point taken here. Now, Eric and I were out promoting Holy Grail while the others were swanning around Europe or not doing anything. And
You were doing publicity in Amsterdam. You were in bloody.
no, we were with you at that point as well.
Tell the fucking story. I mean, really. With the greatest respect.
You've got the wrong people here David, if you want to have an explanation.
Eric are queuing up in Westwood with the people queuing up to see Holy Grail. Thought we were being cute and clever. Nobody would recognize us. And luckily, Eric had hired somebody to recognize him, and it worked. And in the course of the tumult of fans rushing us, Eric said, "Hey, would you like to meet George Harrison?" That's how it began with me. It's my personal story, Mike. Yeah. And he said, "I'm seeing George Harrison tonight. Let's go to dinner." We did, and it was great. And so Eric had expanded his friends within Python into the Harrison connection.
Right. So, but at that point, because as far as I understand it, George Harrison ends up coughing up like £3 million. Is that right?
Yeah, well,
It's more than that,
there's
wasn't it?
$5 million. I don't know
Right.
what
So
the exchange rate was then, but
it's a lot of money for a cinema
money,
ticket,
yeah.
isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
because that's what someone said. It's basically he just wanted to see this film.
yeah, I just want to see it, was what he said. Yeah. I mean, just brilliant. You could not have a better backer than that. And also, somehow, it all a nice full circle. We adored the Beatles, you know. And I was
Yeah.
first writing with Terry from university and all that. We just went out and queued up and bought their album faster than anybody else, you know, could. So it was kind of.
He's in it,
like-
isn't he? He's very briefly
He's
in
brief,
it.
briefly. He's briefly
In the
it.
opening scene.
No, it's later. It's
later?
where is it?
He's in the scene in the house when they're all trying to find Brian and I can't remember where it comes, but anyway, he was George played Mr. Papadopoulos, who'd given us the mount
Right.
for
Oh,
nothing.
right, he rents the mount.
Yeah, he rented the mount.
Yeah.
No, he'd actually given it to them for nothing.
Right.
And so Mr. Papadopoulos and George said good evening.
Right.
And
I heard
but
he
he-
says
he
hello,
didn't-
hello, and apparently you had to
No,
overdub it.
I had to dub it, unfortunately, because we couldn't hear him at all.
Right.
So I was the voice of George. I just got it right. Hello.
So
He was the quiet one, and really.
so you get to Tunisia. Talk to me about what this film was like to shoot. I mean, you know, it looks like an incredible laugh. I mean, it just looks like you're having a lot of fun at that point. But were you?
Yeah, it was.
It was actually, I remember it as a very comfortable experience. Certainly more comfortable than Holy
This.
Grail.
Right.
Old Scotland, and we had chain mail, which got very soggy and sort of
Yeah.
squashed your genitals as you were trying to sort of crawl up to the castle. Anyway, you
Yeah.
don't have to hear about all that.
But we were actually shooting on the set that had been used for Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah, the Zeffirelli.
Zeffirelli, exactly. So we were in holy ground to begin with, and we then desecrated many of the set props.
Were you
I'd say.
did you design a lot of the sets?
That's what I'm credited for, yes.
Right.
But actually,
It may not be true,
main-
but yes, it was, yeah.
the main set we used was called the Rebat, and that was built in 800 AD. I mean, it's a historical site. It was extraordinarily tolerant and reasonable of the Tunisian
It was
people to
built
let
for
us use
us. They knew then. They knew we were coming.
Oh,
So all
they
that
built it.
graffiti
Yeah.
is on a sort of 18th century
Well,
monument.
it was tricky because, in fact, it's not.
No.
That was done in post. The one thing that we did leave, the one scar we left is from the spaceship sequence when it crashes, and we have a shot of it sitting on the ground there. We had to put some fumes or whatever on the wall, which we discovered didn't come off.
Right.
So we ended up painting those stones to look like the original stones.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. They look like original
In
medieval.
1,000 years, I can discover this moment.
So, did you start when the script was done already, or did you improvise any of it, or was it all completely written when you began? Because I would say it's the most of the movies. It's the most complete story. I think it's the even though it obviously has got a lot of sort of incredibly funny sketch moments in it. It's still got a through line, proper narrative, more so than Holy Grail and more so than Meaning of Life. Would you agree?
Yes, I think so. It was the script was pretty much tight when we started filming, wasn't it? I don't think there was a great deal of ad-libbing. Things always happen when you're in the. Oh yes, no. There was a great bit of ad-libbing because there was one scene. It was a scene I particularly like. Actually, it's towards the end when the centurion is sending people off to their deaths on crucifixion, one cross each on the left. Yeah, we know.
And Terry's playing the mad jailer.
And Terry starts, he improvises, he sort of played with my epaulettes, as it were. Not too rude an expression. Just comes out with this wonderful line. We got, what was your line?
Oh, the lumps of it round about.
Yeah. totally irrelevant. But, it was
You went with it
It was
though.
a fun day.
Oh,
that
went with
was.
him,
You
yeah.
completely went with it.
We had a great day. We're doing that, and Eric was on very good form. 'Cause
Yeah.
we had that. Eric was on both sides of the scene. He was also one of the guards. He was also one of the people with.
Yeah, he comes in
He
during
comes
that
in
scene
and,
and says, "Hang on, we got a lot.
Hang on, I've been told I can be set free and live on an island for the rest of my life."
Yeah.
And the centurion, who was a liberal Roman,
Yeah.
who's been stuck in this horrible part of the world, at last he's found some decent moment. He says,
He's such a great
"That's
character,
great.
the liberal Roman
I'm
crucifier."
so pleased. And Eric has the great line, "No, it's crucifixion, really."
yeah. So you actually one other thing I just wanted to ask is before we go on to the reaction to the movie, which obviously was sort of incredible, is about Graham Chapman. Is like the decision to make Graham Arthur and to make him Brian.
Yeah.
Was there a reason why Graham always got the sort of main, as it were, title role? Was it because there was something everyman about him? Do you think?
Well, I mean, he'd shown in Holy Grail how brilliant he was at being the suffering straight man.
Yeah, the suffering straight man,
There's something
exactly.
he looks great. He was kind of tall and quite good looking and all that. And yet all these people are sort of attracted to him. No, please, I'm just trying to get on with it. I'm the King of England. Please, shut up. How old are you? That sort of thing. He was the master of someone trying to get by in a world full of loonies.
Yes, that's
So
right.
It sort of made him the obvious
No,
choice,
that
I think,
works.
to play Brian. But
Yeah.
there was a little bit of controversy, wasn't there?
I thought John wanted to play Brian.
Oh, is that right?
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think John wanted to play Brian because he was slightly worried that Graham, who had only just given up drinking at the time, might, have problems
Yeah,
with such a long, consistent role.
yeah.
But he was superb, and also it meant that John was released to play
Yeah.
a lot of wonderful, brilliant characters.
Brilliant characters.
Yeah.
And with the sort of individual bits of it, like what have the Romans ever done for us, right? Or the stoning or whatever. Did you think of those when you're performing them or writing them as like these are like Python sketches, or these are just chapters in a movie? How does that feel to you? Does it feel like, because people think of them now? I think of them now as sort of like, in a way, as like the parrot sketch or like the cheese shop sketch, as great Python sketches, but they are part of a movie.
I don't think I never thought it was sketch-like. I actually thought these were really good ideas. These were strong ideas to play with. With a whole crowd of people willing to believe, we are all individuals, and the one subtle voice is, I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, this is sublime. This
it
is
is
so wise.
beautiful.
The Sermon on the Mount, where the sound couldn't be heard and everybody's getting the words wrong.
Yeah.
I love the fact, I mean, the prescient elements are like our fight for women, how women needed to be able to support it, to have the right to stone people to death, just like the men.
Yeah.
And then we play it in a very modern, as in now, gender identity madness. We have men playing women pretending to be men so they can kill somebody.
Yeah.
That seems...
That's very, very the foresight there is incredible. But, well, let's talk a bit.
It was actually also, it was trying to find, you've got this conceit, all right, it's the Bible story, but it's all happening to someone who's born next to
Jesus. Yeah.
So working on from that, how do you sustain that through comedy? You know, rather than make the comedy strained to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think somehow we got some, you know, the ideas came up. I remember at the end, it was rather the whole crucifixion idea was something we thought, well, how on earth do you do this? How do you deal with something which is means so much to so many people?
Yeah.
And I think the way we cracked it in the end was just to follow the whole idea of the film, which was to suggest, look at modern life and project it back to the Bible story, to that time, Judea in 30 AD.
Yeah.
So you've got the chancer, you've got the guy, you know, I'll take your cross. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then he runs off and all that. And
but the ending is actually and has become an extremely kind of uplifting moment, weirdly, because I think we've got to move on, I think, to the reaction, and of course I am going to talk a little bit about the famous TV show with Malcolm Muggeridge and the Bishop of Southwark or whatever. And one of the things, of course, they have a go at you about is the idea that this is somehow degrading the crucifixion or whatever. But actually, weirdly, I would say the end of Life of Brian is an incredibly kind of spiritual and uplifting moment.
Well,
I mean, just to get back in for just a moment, Mike. No, I think it's really simple. We brought humanness, humanity, back into the world of dogma.
Yeah.
And that's what it's not much more complicated than that. The absurdity of humanity, and it's there to sort of deflate the rigidity of dogma, and I think that's what that film is all about.
Yeah, no, I think, and also you take, you know, these extraordinary, legendary situations, and you just put ordinary people into them, and of course you are dealing with the truth as well, which is that there were loads and loads of messiahs knocking about in that time in Judea.
I mean, that's exactly it. Many of the ideas came from just studying the period, and crucifixion was a very, very common sort of punishment. It happened all the time. It wasn't just reserved for one person. It was a great sort of event, and people went up and watched and all that, but like hanging was in London in the medieval times.
So when it came out, did you think this is going to have a massive, difficult reaction with religious people, or did you think people will just think this is funny?
Well, I mean,
Stir the hornet's nest is what it's about.
There had to be some sort of reaction.
Yeah.
I just, honestly, I can't remember at the time what I felt. All I know is that when John and I went to debate with Malcolm Muggeridge and the Bishop.
On Friday night, Saturday morning, with Tim Rice hosting it.
With Tim Rice, yeah. And I felt that we had to be on top form. We had to know our arguments. We had to know exactly why we were making the film, what was the basis on which we thought we could do a film like this and make it funny, yet have some sort of message, whatever, you know. And we realized straight away that they had the Bishop and Malcolm Muggeridge, their approach was to just denigrate the film. So I think Malcolm Muggeridge called it a
10th-rate film.
A 6th-rate film. Was
10th.
10th-rate film. Which it just wasn't. I mean, the way it looked and all that looked okay, whatever you thought of
you look genuinely pained at that. I've always thought when I've watched that, and indeed I've watched the recreation, the very good recreation the BBC did of it, I've always got the impression that John goes into attack mode and starts taking the piss out of them and starts referring to the Inquisition and things like that.
Well, Malcolm Muggeridge saying, you know, Christianity has been responsible for some of the most amazingly wonderful things throughout history. And John says, like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yes.
Just point made.
No, it's fantastic.
What they did was, why I got I wasn't angry. I was just terribly frustrated. These people, quite wise, intelligent people, just tried to sort of put us down and say we were just silly people doing something that wasn't worth doing and wasn't worth watching and all that. And they got the audience completely wrong. And when the bishop at the end said, "Well, I hope you make your 30 pieces of silver,"
Yeah.
dangled his cross.
Yeah.
You think, what's happening?
Yeah.
And
No,
I'll
but
tell you a good story, because
Okay.
I came up and I thought, what are we going to do? This is it's just such an unpleasant experience. And the Bishop of Southwark said to me, I think that went rather well. They just didn't take it seriously at all. So I
Right.
was angry
Yeah.
that actually the church didn't take seriously what we were trying to say.
But it's so medieval. Their attitude is so medieval. I mean, it's incredible now to think that people would go on television and talk seriously about, the wonderfulness of the incarnation or whatever, and this film as somehow damaging that. It seems extraordinary. Although, having said that, of course, if this film were released now, I actually think it's interesting because religion, of course, has become a very complicated subject to take the piss out of now.
certain religions.
Certain
Not-
religions.
not-
Well, that's
not-
true. So I
not
actually don't.
Anglicans.
I don't think you would have much of a problem with Christians with this film. If you had a problem, it would be people with speech defects, I think.
Yeah.
I honestly think that. I honestly think that it's got an amazing amount of jokes at
I-
the
I
expense
ha-
of people with speech defects.
I have form there.
Yeah, you have
because
form in
Fish
Fish
Called
Called Wander
Wonder,
as well, yeah. Yeah.
The experience of Fish Called Wonder was that it actually led me to help foundation of a stammering centre, which helped stammering
No, but that's
children.
But
So it's-
that
yeah.
is great, though. You
Good.
see, that's what I
Yeah.
think people often miss. Now, in the culture outrage that we exist in now, I think something people miss is that laughter doesn't necessarily mean that you are doing down the thing that is
No.
being involved in the laughter. Laughter is not itself necessarily just destructive, and that's a very good example of how laughter can lead somewhere else.
Nor should it be prescriptive and say stammering is something that's beyond that. You can't have a stammerer in a comedy film.
You can't quarantine things from
can.
laughter.
You
I
can.
think. Yeah, I think.
Stammerers appreciate that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Some.
Exactly. But so when there was actual Terry, you tell me when there were people like with placards outside the cinema or whatever. I mean, what how did you feel about that? Did you think I'll go down and sort it out? You're the sort of bloke who I imagine would sort that out.
No, I was gleeful.
It's just
I thought we
the
stood at the
royalties.
hornet's nest. I mean, I'd come from a background of. I was going to be a missionary once upon a time.
Were you?
Yeah, my grandfather was a Baptist minister, and especially I knew the South of America, which we were not allowed to show the film in the Bible Belt, and so all of that was just.
Did it come out in America at the same time as in Britain?
Pretty much the same time, but we were not allowed to show it in any of the Bible Belt. So I knew those people. I mean, I knew they would go crazy, and it felt good because they were the people you want to make crazy a bit. Maybe they'll start thinking before they shoot you. I mean, there's that moment of thought before the knife goes in.
Yeah.
But it seemed like worth the risk at the time.
But do you think? But obviously, it also just raised the profile of the movie. I mean,
Yeah, I mean the streets. We were very ecumenical there. We had Catholics, Protestants, and Jews all protesting.
Yeah.
We weren't totally
I
ecumenical.
can't believe
we
you had
missed.
Jews.
We
I
missed.
can't believe you had Jews.
There were- they
A,
were
Jews
out.
can't be bothered, and B,
No, there was
There
New York Jews are tough. They're going to come out, whatever the weather.
well, that's true. Although there is
some threat to
there is
religion.
deleted character, isn't there? There's Otto,
Otto.
who's
yeah,
a deleted character, who's a kind of arch Zionist,
No, he believes
suicide
in a
squad.
state of Israel that will last for 1,000 years.
And
You know
he's
what
kind
that
of
is.
German as well.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yes. I sort of turned a Star of David into
To a swastika.
slightly Nazi-esque.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
swastika.
He got cut.
Tricky.
Why did he get cut?
Because Eric was building a career in
War
Hollywood,
Crimes Tribunal.
and Hollywood is slightly
Jewish.
Majority is slightly Jewish,
I see.
and he wrote the scene. That's the moment. I don't want to talk about Eric and how he pursues his career, but it was a complete betrayal
Okay.
of everything we stood for.
Okay. So, in terms of it now, in terms of seeing it now, do you think it could still have the kind of like the lessening of dogma impact that you're talking about? Do you think people, because obviously, as you said,
Hopefully,
I think it's an example of something where a film in which, or a work in which people can look at religion in a slightly different way.
But not just religion. It's true. Like like everyone
What is Loretta going to say? That's the question I've got on my mind. What will Loretta say? Eric's playing Stan, who says, "I want to be called Loretta."
Yeah.
Why do you want to be called Loretta? I want to be a woman. Why do you want to be a woman? I want to have babies. Stan, you can't have babies. Why can't I have babies? Are you oppressing me? Yeah. No, you don't have a womb where you keep the fetus.
Where's the fetus going to just stay in a box? Yeah.
I mean, that's really prescient. It's about now. Right?
Yeah, no, it is about now. But I mean, without getting into really complicated waters, some people would say, well, you shouldn't do comedy about that. That's why I mean it's not just about religion, and maybe Life of Brian is ahead of its time in that respect.
But this is what makes me crazy, because I was doing an interview in Germany. I mean, he's heard this one, and I was talking about things, doesn't matter, and the journalist said some of the things I was saying were very much what the right wing was saying, especially she said neo-Nazis, which is very right wing. I said I couldn't be further. I mean, 180 degrees different, and she'd written this article, and I said, "Can I see it before it goes out?" And I the way it was written, I didn't like it. I said, "Could you please append it with, when you can't distinguish between humor and hatred, we are fucked." And I feel that really strongly, and I think that's where we are at the moment. And one's got to be I think one's got to fight it rather than just submit to it.
Yeah.
Apu. Free Apu.
Oh, right.
Bring Apu back to...
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm afraid I'm not happy with Matt Groening for not fighting more for that. Apu is a wonderful character.
Yes. Let's move on.
David!
I think it's just a different discussion, Terry. That's all I agree.
What I mean.
You know, it's a complicated and nuanced discussion.
That's what we need to do, is get discussion going. People don't discuss. They react, and they scream at each other.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, that's the problem. I don't know how much longer we've got. I was told how much longer we got. 3 minutes. Is that it?
Wow.
Really?
4 more hours.
4 more hours, just of this. Does anyone want to shout out a question? Because I was told there were no questions from the audience, but I felt that was unfair. So, because people will surely, yes. Very quick question from you, sir. I'm going to repeat your question because we can't have mics in the audience. Why does the leper dance, the ex-leper, why does the ex-leper dance around like that, is the question that we've got.
Very esoteric question, but I think it's just that he was showing that he was incredibly fit and well and bouncy.
Because Jesus had cured him.
And Jesus had cured him, and now he had no livelihood.
Yeah.
No one was going to give money to someone who was fit and very and able to dance around and all.
Yeah, yeah.
So
he's pissed off with Jesus.
I thought it was because the loo was so far away.
Yeah, well, that's a subtext.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes. Why is he called Brian?
I thought that was obvious.
It's just because it's a name that's a long way from Jesus.
It's a good name.
It's a good name. It's a funny name.
Very pedestrian name.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, lots of Brians here, but Brian doesn't come with any baggage or anything like that.
Are you American? Where are you from? Holland. Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah, in Britain we think of Brian
Brian
as a slightly naff name. Sorry to any Brians. Yes, what's your... Was it hard to keep a straight face during the biggest dickest scene?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, because the problem of shooting the scene is that you have lots of different sort of setups and all that, and in each one, people have to be just on the verge of absolutely collapsing with laughter. And after 4 hours, that's quite difficult.
Yeah.
So you just have to whisper something in their ear, which you hope will crack them up just before.
And also, there's so much laughter in that scene. People are just laughing.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot laughing, but I think, incontinentia buttocks came out purely because I whispered in someone's ear just to get them going. So there's a great deal of laughter, and in one part of it, I actually crack up myself. It's a scene facing Chris Langham, and I say, "So what is so funny about my friend?" Because and I made myself laugh, and it's pathetic, and I'm trying to turn away from camera. You see me just trying to...
I'm told there's 1 minute. Does anyone want to shout a question? The person who just stuck their hand up there. Yes, you. Yes, you. Yeah. Shout it out. Where did the idea for the aliens come from? That's your idea, isn't it, Terry? I would have thought.
Well, Brian jumped off that tower. What else could you do to save him? We had many scenes, good scenes following. We needed to keep going. So I thought, why not?
Yeah.
Thank you
Star
very
Wars was
Can I
in
just-
the
Yes.
zeitgeist at that moment as well.
Yes.
Just one thing I should say, because it is relevant. It's about material that we didn't use in the film. And there's one sketch which was all about trying to book a restaurant for the Last Supper.
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful, ringing Friday night. Friday, 12, Friday, you must be joking. Busiest night of the week. We can do your 3/4s. All right, yeah.
It would have stormed it. Why didn't
Yeah,
you do it?
Well, we didn't do it because that was a sort of cod joke. It was like sort of knocking people off a donkey or something like that.
Right.
And it wasn't really, that the film had to be about something, and it had to be about the history and about the
Yeah.
that,
I think you could still do it
but
in the
it's still
sequel.
the funniest thing. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to the fantastic Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam of Monty Python. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm David Baddiel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to go to fight with somebody.